Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast, where we have conversations with guests about their life, loss, grief, and of course, grief dreams, which can be dreams of the deceased. If you want to know more about the topic and your host, please visit the website griefdreams.ca. To support the podcast, please go ahead and rate it. For additional ways to support the show, please see the episode show notes. Before I move on with the show, I would like to give a territory acknowledgement. Long before Canada was formed, the Stalo people were the original land stewards, and they have lived here since time immemorial. They continue to live in the unceded Stalo territory known to settlers as the Fraser Valley and Lower Fraser Canyon of British Columbia. I recognize and honor the contribution that Indigenous peoples have made and continue to make to our community and the topic of grief dreams. Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. We have a special guest. It is my aunt, the one and only Tina Mirabella, who is a poet and retired creative writing teacher with a master's degree in education and literature studies. She is the author of the poetry collection, The Road Taken, and writes about her experiences with the intention of connecting readers to the beauty of a weathered life. Her debut poetry book offers a glimpse into love, loss, navigating grief, and the complex journey of finding one's inner power. She resides with her husband and children in both Canada and Italy, spending much of her time marveling at the beauty of nature. You can find some of her work on Instagram at mylife.in_poetry, where she shares meaningful prose, poetry, and photography highlighting our humanness. So Tina, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm so honored to be here. I'm a little nervous. I do have to say that as well. I'm really glad that you asked because I'm just released my book and I'm excited to share some poetry with you. But more than that, I want to talk about this journey that I've been on since my father passed and the road that I've taken in trying to deal with some of those struggles that we have over loss and love. So I'm really happy to share some insights that I've had and some confusions that I still have. Right? It's an ever evolving journey. So thank you, Joshua, for having me.
And so I guess let's start with your grief. And so it was your father the first person in your life who had died, or were there other people prior?
Well, my grandparents that I lived beside and grew up beside, we had two houses together, and both of my grandparents passed before him. However, they were on in their years, and as devastating as it was, nothing really compared to the loss I felt when my dad passed. It was very sudden, right out of the blue. It wasn't an accident. It was a health issue that we had no aware of. And he was away from us. So that also compounded it, not being able to see him and get to him. So the grief really was compounded by distance as much as it was compounded by the weight of the loss of what he meant to me, who he was in my life. So it was, to say the least, devastating.
There's something to say when you're not able to be with someone as they die and like just wanting to like show love and offer support. And so how old were you when your father died?
Well, it's only been 9 years. It's so do I have to really say my
You have
age?
to-
Um, so we'll leave it at that, but I am a retired teacher, so you can do some math there. Yeah, it's been 9 years, and it's still a battle. The grief comes in waves, as I'm sure many of your listeners would attest to. On some days, it's, choking me at the throat. It's right at the tip of my tongue and strangle holding me. And other days, it passes through me like a wave. And I feel it and I allow it to move and it goes. So 9 years it's been a challenge, but we're moving with it.
And so could you tell me, what was your dad's name?
Angelo.
Angelo. Okay. And so what are
Yeah.
some like fond memories you had of Angelo that you could like share with us?
Oh, well, my dad was a very hard worker, an immigrant from Italy, and had a grade 5 education, came to Canada very, very young. I think he was around, I want to say 12, 13 years old, and right away began working and helping the family and supporting. And so my memories of my dad, most of them are work related. Um, Sunday mornings would be the only Sundays were days of rest for him. And I would remember I do remember fondly mornings, watching old movies, waking up with him still in the house. And that was a treat because he worked from 7:30 in the morning he was gone, and 7:30 at night he would come home. So, we did, like most people, have vacation days as well that I remember taking vacation with him, and he loved camping and, going to the beach, and he loved spending time with us, but it was modest. Everything in my childhood, we lived a modest life, and he worked very hard. So I would say, my fondest memories are those Sunday mornings when I got to spend time with him in my pajamas and watch John Wayne. Like, that was his favorite.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And it's nice to have those memories. And I'm just going just back to your grief. Like, what were some of the surprising things you've noticed since it seems to be this was the more complex grief that you've experienced? Like, was there anything new that you learned about like the grief journey?
Oh, well, I still cry today, and I thought it would get easier. So I think that's a bit of a shock to me that when I do cry, that I'm still crying 9 years later. I have Kleenex beside me here because I'm anticipating I'm going to cry again. Talking about it. I know that it's a loss that I will never replace. It's an irreplaceable loss. It's a void that I will always carry with me. But I think what surprises me the most is that I can't seem to let go of the tears. The tears part is very trying for me. And I notice a lot of other people who don't cry, and then I feel like something's wrong with me because I'm still crying 9 years later. So,
And I think it's interesting because a lot of people can have those perceptions that, someone who's not crying is doing better, as quote unquote. But like, why do you need to stop crying is like my question, right? Because the crying is coming from deep love and longing to sort of have that person still be a part of one's life. And like, what's wrong with that?
yeah, I agree. It is a sign of love, 100%. And I say grief is our bedfellow. And we will be with grief forever. They will live with our grief will live with us forever. And it is a sign of how much I love and loved. So I do agree with you. I think it's when the tears take me by surprise in moments that I don't want to be crying and I'm crying and I'm like, okay, excuse me, just give me a moment, more in embarrassing moments. I don't know if embarrassing is the word, but inconvenient moments when grief decides, hey, knock, 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 I'm here. And I want to be a part of this conversation. So I'm like, okay, I would like to tell him to just go sit down for now. This is not convenient. But I think that's kind of where I'm coming from.
And I think that's the humanness that you're talking about in the bio of just like what it means to be human and how do you walk with grief because it wants to be acknowledged in certain moments that we may think is inconvenient, but it wants to be acknowledged. And how do we at least acknowledge some of it? And honestly, I'm having like as a male in our society, it's even just crying in itself, it's its own thing for me to even get to that state because there's so much resistance and like pressure not to. And so I'm trying to get to where you are at in many ways. Like that's kind of my goal to be able to let tears out in public in front of others. Like I don't have to be alone because that just honors the emotions in a certain way and goes beyond, I would say, the culture's toxicity when it comes to, what emotions are allowed and what aren't. And I think it's just like, how do we honor our humanness and how do we honor grief and model grief in an appropriate way to those around us? And sometimes that inspires others to do the same. I know just being able to sometimes talking about grief with people, my own, or even sometimes showing a little sadness, within that, it opens people up to their own grief, to connect with what is inside them. So you never know really what those emotions are for, if it's just for you or it's for the world around you
Yeah, for
and what
someone.
to see, because you don't know what people are going through. And I've learned like just through my journey, so many people are carrying grief with them and they don't have people around them to honor it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, to kind of be there for those words to be there in the book as a support to other people who may have traveled that same road that I've traveled and who need to see that it's okay to feel the void as deeply as you feel it. And it's okay to, one of my lines is, crumble into oblivion because you feel untethered. You feel like you're floating in darkness and you're grasping at things and you don't know where to look and where to turn. So the poems that I share also take me through moments of hope as well. So I struggle between sometimes feeling that deep void, but then trying to grasp at something and hold on to something that will give me that hope that, okay, I can get through this. I can, you know, get to the other side of that grief moment.
And so when it comes to, like I said, the way you coped and the way you process your grief, seems writing's a big part. Has that always been for the 9 years? Like when you've always wrote a little bit and this was kind of like a moment where you got to put it out to the world, or is this something new that you started to do over the last couple of years?
So I started writing in journals much sooner than this. Well before my dad passed, I wrote in journals about my feelings, about how I perceived myself, how I perceived the relationships I was in, more as a form of being able to read it on the page and hear it coming back to me, because we get these thoughts in our heads and they're jumbled all over the place. And I'm somewhat of a squirrel where I'm like going this way and that way. And my thoughts kind of converge and diverge. And so I needed at a younger age to see it on paper, to write it down and to let the stream of consciousness kind of flow out of me and get it there and go back and analyze and see where I was at. So when my dad died, I took up the pen a little more regularly, obviously, because I was going from moments of incredible sadness to moments of burning hate and cursing, and then moments of why me, and moments of why him, and then moments of I hate you so much. Why did you do this? Like, how did you leave me? So I was all over the place and I needed something to focus my attention on those feelings and not have this big, enormous weight on top of me to deal with. I needed to compartmentalize it a bit and organize it, if that makes sense. So the writing began more heavily in journals, and then I started taking those journals and paring down the words, getting rid of the extra and getting right down to the nitty-gritty of how I was feeling and picking out words from my journals to create a poem. And that's really how it all started. The writing came from those, pages of blather. Me just vomiting on the page, basically. Everything and anything. And that's how I focused into how I was feeling, and it allowed me to deal with it on a more micro manage the feelings.
I love that. I love hearing it. It's a different technique than I utilize. I don't usually use writing down words or poetry, creative writing as a way of, kind of like processing my grief. It's a lot of thinking or talking to others, even like hearing stories. That was one of my big things is trying to get to know the person from beyond my perspective, but from other people around them to get like a better understanding of who they were as a human, as you say. And so I think it's really nice that you found this direction and then now you're able to put it out into a book. So why the book? Why not just like keep it to yourself? Like what got into you to say, you know what? I want to put this out into the world because that's a very vulnerable position to be in to show what you went through in your writing because you're telling people like I was not okay. Like there was points in this where it was said like it was dark, I was hopeless. I was questioning things. I was angry. And that's a lot to tell the world about because a lot of times we hide that and give those clues to the closest people around us. So what got into your head to say, you know what, I want to make this into a book for others to hopefully, gain some encouragement from?
Well, I had always wanted to write a book, but I wanted to write a children's book. So I was I was always really interested in writing. I was a creative writing teacher. I was inspired by my students every day, and their vulnerability was really the catalyst for me opening up to be more vulnerable in my writing. And teenagers have a way of showing us, teaching us more than we give them credit for. They are very wise, and I find for myself, in my later years, I was closing myself in where they were teaching me how to open myself up, how to unfurl, unfold. And by sharing that grief, it was helping them by them sharing their, inadequacies, their perception of their own inadequacies, by them sharing their trials and struggles. I could see from them this weight, right, lifting off and they performed in front of the class and shared openly. Like, wow, I need some of that. And so I turned from writing a children's book into I'm going to share my grief and I'm going to share my mistakes, my own inadequacies, some of my own sins, and show how I've climbed towards redemption and climbed towards healing and climbed towards bettering of myself and owning my beauty, even though my life is weathered, even though my life is wrought with trials and struggles, that is what life is. It's not linear. And so by sharing it openly with others in this book form, I felt like it would be relieving for me, but also that it could help someone else.
Well, I love how you said that your students, their vulnerability helped you become more vulnerable. And I think we just constantly need people to model that in front of us because we've been modeled a different way, more, I would say, toxic way of living. And
Mhm.
so to be and embrace humanity is such a beautiful thing. And so I'm happy you're in a point where you're doing that because you're modeling a different kind of behavior to those around you. And like, I bet you if you ask, 8 out of 10 people around you, would you open yourself up and write about your life? They'd probably say no. Like, they're like, so it's nice how you're able to do that. And so I was wondering if you could share a couple poems that you wrote to give us also for me to hear what it sounds like. Because I'm reading it, but I'm also not a poet. So I don't know how it's supposed to sound. And you mentioned how reading things back had a different kind of power to it. And so like the structure that you use and the tone, it means something. And so I was hoping you could share some.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll focus in on the more grief-related poems. My poetry is quite short. My poems are small. I have a few lengthier ones, but most of them are bite-size. So if it's okay, I'll share a couple bite-size ones, maybe one longer one. But the very first poem in the book is called Oriental Basin, which really is the name of the largest crater on the moon. And this was one of the first pieces that I wrote after my father passed. And I open the book with this. I'd like to also say that I've divided the book into the 4 seasons because I feel that the seasons are a great metaphor for our life, and that we're constantly, like nature, cycling through winter, spring, summer, fall, and then another winter comes and spring and summer and fall. So I structured the book in that way. So it does start with winter. So it's a little depressing at the beginning, but there is hope because spring does arrive and the buds form. So, and I do feel that at this stage with my grief, I am in a more autumn, comfortable. I sit with grief a lot easier now than I did before. Anyway, this is the first poem in winter called Oriental Basin. Aching with lunar longing, your weighty absence like moon-sized craters, I crumble into oblivion. So that whole idea of this distance between us and the moon, this chasm of space, the basin itself, the craters on the moon are so large and so weighty. They're empty. Yes, yet they're weighty. They're heavy because they're so large. So there's this idea of him being gone. How do I close that chasm? How do I bridge that gap, that distance that I feel from him now? And I can't. In this moment, I crumble. I'm untethered. I crumble into oblivion. I'm floating and I don't have anything to tether myself to. So it does begin very somber and sullen, but that was a real feeling that I didn't know what to do with myself in those moments.
It's beautiful once you explain it. So I remember reading that and I'm like, I'm not sure exactly, what's going on here. And it's nice when you can explain it and you understand like, where you were at that moment and how big that was and that to like being untethered and that
Mhm.
feeling of that in the beginning of loss can be so hard to sort of figure out. And so I'm really, glad you found a tether in some place. I know it might be in another poem or stuff, but what was the tether? Like, what was the thing that you said hope or that got you back to land?
Um, I would have to say that community is a huge support system for all of us. And without community and reaching out to others for that support, we are floating beings. And I look at nature again. The book again, it deals with a lot of nature and how connected we are to nature. And I went out into nature a lot. I was among the trees who have their own, underground support network and their roots. And I found with God, I found with family, I found with friends, the community support that I needed to feel like I could get through this. So it was a combination. I don't think that any one place or person or moment helped me to see I have hope. I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I feel for people that, um, don't have as much community support. And this is why I love what you're doing, Josh, with these podcasts. And so that even listening to you and your podcasts on grief dreams can act as a community support to other people, which is, why I wanted to come on and share some stories so that strangers out there will hear that their grief is very similar to mine, or there's something that they can take away from this conversation that we're having to help them.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And so, come on, let's do another poem.
Okay. Okay. So how about uh those moments after someone passes, you go through all their pictures and you're looking at life and you're remembering so fondly times that you've shared together. It captures that moment in time. And even though that person in your life is gone, you have this photograph as a memento, right? Of a relationship, of something lived. And for me, when I look at the photographs, I say to so I'm explaining to you the poem before I read it. When I look at the photographs, to me, he's still alive. And so going back to those photographs, I remember life. I don't look at them and say he's passed, he's gone. I look at them and remember life, and that makes me happy. So one of the more positive pieces on grief here in my poetry collection is called The Photograph. Memento mori, this still life is still life to me. A portrait of blurring lines and bending time. So, still life is a term we use in the art world to say it's not moving, it's still. It's life that's still. It's static. And yes, that person is static in that picture, but it's still life. It's still brimming with a smile, and there's action behind those pictures that your memory conjures up, and it fills you with some warmth, and you're blurring the lines between life and death in this moment. You're bending time because yeah, right now he's not beside you or she's not beside you, but in that picture, you bend time to remember the life that they had and that they lived. And those moments of going through photographs are difficult because the tears, like we've talked, they flow uncontrollably, but the joy at the same time that it's comorbid, it's joy comorbid with grief, right? It's love, like you said. It's love. So that's another short one for you.
I'd like that. And I like sort of in those moments that you are looking at those photographs, there is life. Like there's something else that is breaming within you. And I always find that you can have multiple emotions going on at the same time. And I think that's really interesting to me. Because a lot of times it's just like you have one and then you have another, but actually they're all like kind of playing with each other
Mhm.
underneath the surface. And like in that moment, there is so much joy that, and you're bringing the person to the present, which is, the tears come, the moments come, but they are so alive in that moment, which is, I think, really beautiful and well said. That's amazing. I like this. Yeah.
Good.
I like
Thank
you
you.
explaining these poems to me. This
Thank
is great.
you.
This is great.
I have one more I would like to read, but it's dream related.
Ooh.
So maybe we'll talk about dreams first and we'll come back to that because this was a poem that was inspired by a dream I had about my
Oh,
father.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I did not know. So this is kind of great. This is
There you
great. This is good.
go.
This is good. So yeah, let's like move to dreams. I think is a great like point in that. So in your journey, I know some people will have some nightmares based on the overwhelming grief that they have and also the complexity of their grief. And other times they can be very like comforting and loving. And so I'm curious on your journey, since you had so much complex grief, did you have a lot of nightmares when you were going through those 9 years?
Yes, and still do. And I would probably say they outweigh the joyful ones, unfortunately. They are ones that have woken me up in the middle of the night, panting, crying, physically waking up wet. And they've always been about my father. For other people who have passed in my life, I've dreamt about them as well. They are more of the calming, ones that I felt closer to them as a result of the dream. Not to say I haven't had those about my father, but I've had more in where I've felt in distress than I have where I've felt comforted and joyful. So that's kind of sad for me
It
because
is.
yeah.
Well,
So,
definitely will re-traumatize you, right? It
oh,
brings up those emotions
oh yeah.
and you're almost feeling like you're starting at square one. Is there a
They
theme? Is there a theme that you sort of see? Like usually there's like a pattern. Maybe the imagery is different, but the theme of the dream can be very consistent throughout the nightmares.
It is. It is. And they're all where either I can't, well, sometimes I can't speak. I can't get his attention and he goes and walks away from me and I'm, you know, wanting to yell and can't. Or it's I'm yelling at him to speak to me and he's not speaking to me. And I'm like, I'm here. I'm here. You know, I've only had one dream where he's spoken to me, and it's only been one word, and it was my name. And that was the most beautiful dream I've ever had, to hear his voice. For him to say my name in my dream, like I want to cry right now thinking about that was such a comforting moment because you fear that you're going to lose their voice. You're going to forget what their voice sounds like, you know? And like many people, I'm sure I've kept a voice message on my phone. And I'm afraid every time I upgrade my phone that I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose something. And I play it every so often to hear it. So to have him say my name in a dream was just so beautiful. But more times than not, he's not speaking and, we are at a family gathering, and there's lots of people. I'm never able to be alone with him. I'm never able to have his full attention. And maybe that's part of growing up with him, that he was always so busy and he gave so much of himself to other people. His funeral was packed with people who were grateful to him for one thing or another. He was Jesus's servant. He was a man who believed that his responsibility on earth was to serve others, to give to others. And so I often felt like he was always out there giving of himself to others, always. And so it was Sunday morning where I got my time. So I had one day really out of out of 6, on the day that he rested, it was my turn kind of thing. And the only good thing about that is that or I can say is like, "Ha, ha, ha, I get him every Sunday," you know? So, I think that's part of it when I go back and think on why is he always in crowds and why is he never turning towards me and always with others? That's how I'm choosing maybe to interpret it. But, yes, so that's kind of the distressing part for me because 'cause I'd really like just to have one more conversation. I just want one.
Yeah, it's so interesting on how you've put it together with your past, on understanding the difficulties I think people have who are good people and are serving their communities and serving others, that the consequences, there's not enough time to also serve the children or to serve other people. And what a weird kind of like predicament that is.
Mhm,
You just don't have enough time to serve everyone that kind of needs support. And, and then you're at these moments where, as you're looking now, where it's like, I wanted more time with you, right? Like, that's kind of how I hear it, right? Like, when you're looking throughout your life, I wanted more time with you.
mhm,
Even though I said, I don't know how old you are, but Even at this age, it's just not enough time, and that one-on-one time, and that's like that connection. And like, do we ever get that? I don't know. Like, because I think when we love people, we can just be with them all the time. It's like when you have an animal or a dog, they're just so happy and they just want to be with you. They want to go to the washroom with you. They want to do everything. And you're like, but that's just the love. And like, why wouldn't you be like addicted and just, want to spend as much time as possible with those people who make you feel so alive, as you were saying. And it's so hard and such a challenge to walk this world without those people, right? And now you got to find new people, but they're never ever going to be the same. They may help in different areas, other areas, and produce love in other areas. But I always find this journey that we as we are is can be a very lonely one, as we try to figure out who we are and stand up a little straighter without the people who kind of brought us up. And that's why I
Mhm.
feel a lot of love that I had. There's different types throughout my life, but sometimes I look back and there's these people that have helped me stand up constantly when I was just falling apart or I was weak or low self-confidence, all that sort of stuff. And I always look back at those people with like such fond eyes. But now I don't know if I need those people as much, which is I think is a beautiful thing on how they got me to this point. Like they were able to build enough in me that I started to learn to like walk or to learn to like stand up my own. I know part of in your poetry book, there is parts where it talks about self-confidence or it talks about beauty, talks about like seeing yourself with new eyes. So I'm not sure if that's related at all, but I think those people that we care about so much, they had a huge part in us seeing our beauty and seeing our value, which is so hard when they're gone because now we're left to ourselves to see that. Would that make sense, or is that?
No, it
uh,
certainly does, it
uh,
certainly does. I maybe will share an alternate perspective or maybe an adjacent perspective,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I'm totally alternate, but, my father's passing forced me to see myself as capable because this was a man who did everything I needed him to do. He was there to support me through everything. And as much as I am saying, he's out there for others, I knew that if I was in trouble and I called, he would be right there. Flat tire. Okay, I'm on my way. Right. I don't know where the stud is in this wall. I need to hang this picture. Okay, I'll be there right away. Like stupid things, but he was there. And I had to find my own inner power in that moment. I had to now, like you said, stand up for myself. He would lift me up all the time. And now, in a different way, I had to lift myself. And I had to recognize that as much as he saved me from many things, I'm also strong enough to save myself. And in that, I feel that there was a lesson for me to have learned through his passing that I am capable and I am strong and I have a voice and I can use a drill and I can change the tire on a car. It's possible. So, as much as he did, lift me up, his passing showed me that I also needed to lift myself and that I'm responsible for myself as well.
I like that. I think we carry those who would do those things with us when we do those things.
100%. I'm building an IKEA closet for my daughter, and I said, "My dad would be so proud of me right now. Look at me using a drill. Look at me up on this ladder." Honest to God, 2 days ago, I said those exact words. My
Yeah.
dad would be so proud. And I would talk to him, and I'm like, "See, I can do it." And he's my biggest cheerleader. I know he is up there cheering me on.
I love that. Oh, that's great. And
So,
so I wonder if you could share your last poem that relates
yes.
to the dream. Is
Yes,
it the nightmares or is it the positive one?
it is the nightmare one. Is that okay if I do that?
It is okay. Yes, it's just truth.
Okay. It's called Speak Woman. Silently, I contemplate the death of my words. If only I could expand my hand, reach inside this cavity between ribs, caging commandments, part the Red Sea. If only I was he. Stretch my slick fingers primed to perceive pressure points where aches settle. Massage myocardium, knead knots refusing to release my bloodied and fatigued syllabic beats. If only I could speak. Siphon ink from stained lips where intention sits. Mute, inert. If only my breath could sip bitter mist, let my tongue taste the tang of distress. Express regret. Instead, I sit, contemplating ticking clocks, doors locked, whistling teapots, wilted flowers, smoking cigarettes. Friends, us, death. So, this is a poem about the fact that I could not speak out loud in a dream, that I could not find the words, the intentions, that I knew what I wanted to say, but it was sitting on my lips. It was written there on my lips like a poem, but I could not spit it out. And I talk about expanding my hand and reaching inside my chest and massaging my heart and pumping the blood with my fingers. I talk about parting the Red Sea. Could I be like God, like Moses, and just part the Red Sea and allow myself to speak in a dream? Could I knead the knots, knead the ache like a massage, right? And get out those fatigued syllabic beats, get out those words. If only I could speak, but instead I don't. I sit there in the dream and ticking clocks are going on and doors are locked. I can't open. Teapots are whistling and I can't reach the teapot. Flowers are wilting. People are smoking. I think and I sit and I contemplate friends. I contemplate us and I think about death. And that's that. So yes, that was a nightmare rather than a hopeful dream. But
Wow.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing and writing about that because I think a lot of these dreams with the deceased tend to focus on the comforting ones for a lot of people. And I think it's important that we highlight some of the nightmares that people are continuing to have. And I'm curious, as you're sharing that, it kind of brought me back to the original conversation in the beginning on your father dying away from you. And so
Mhm.
I was wondering if you were there with him, what would you have said? So if you could speak to him in that moment,
Oh,
knowing that you couldn't have saved him, like what do you think you would have said?
knowing that he was dying in that moment,
Mhm.
I think pretty much what anybody would say. Thank you. Thank you for my life, for your love, for your sacrifice. I love you. That's it. Just thank you. Sorry. He just gave me so much. He worked really, really hard for his kids, for his family, to his detriment. He was overworked and didn't really take care of his health, didn't share. He was very, you know, quiet, didn't share his pain. And I never asked. So there's a lot of guilt there. Yeah. So I would thank him in that moment. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that because I don't think I've really said that out loud.
Yeah. Well, something I've learned from you, the importance of saying stuff out loud. What we write, what we think,
Getting it out there.
just getting it out there. And it's like some of, I think the secrets are what kill us. It's toxic to who we are and how we can move with our grief and trauma. And so to find a space and a moment in time to say some truth, I think it's very helpful. And just said like empowering too for the body to be able to say it and say, yes, I do have some regrets. I do have some, this is what I would say. And like that would honestly, that's a huge challenge in grief when you can't say your last words to someone.
Mhm.
Like I was, fortunate enough to be able to have a dream where I could say my words
Yeah.
to my father, but like he died very suddenly also. And so, and I went through a period of great depression for like the first 3 months until that dream. And without that dream, I don't know where I'd be, honestly. But there's something about saying those words to those that are dying or that are dead that really empowers our grief in a different way. And so I'm glad you're able to say it. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing with the audience and me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
Thank
really
you for the
appreciate it.
question. Thank you for the question. It's very well put.
And so our last question
Yes.
always is if you could have a dream tonight
Mhm.
of anyone who has passed, it could be your father. What would that dream look like to you?
It would just be him and I.
Yeah, no people, no one else, no
Nobody else.
family. This is about
That's
me.
it. This is my time. Okay? It's all about me.
Love it.
Yeah, and we'd be sitting on our old couch and enjoying a conversation. Really, I wanna hear his voice, I wanna tell him what I've been doing and how wonderful my life has developed into. Become I've married a wonderful, wonderful man that I wish my father would have met because they would have loved each other. They would have loved each other. They would have, oh my goodness, been best friends. I know it. I know it.
But then you would have
And
got even less time with them.
yeah, but I would kind of always be there. He would have been so happy to meet Frank. He really would have. And vice versa, I know. And, yeah, but my dream would just be him and I sitting on our old couch in our home that I grew up in and having a conversation about what life is like now and how happy I am, and thanking him for everything that he's provided for me and gave to me, taught me, all those things.
That's beautiful. I hope you have that dream. If you do, please let me know.
I will.
So I want to just thank you again just for coming on the podcast, opening yourself up to to me, to the world, really, and to putting your grief and your pain and your hope and your joy in a book for people to gain some
Mhm.
strength in. I think that's really why we do what we do. Is like we serve people in different ways, and I'm glad you're able to serve in this way, and I'm glad you're able to come on here today. So. Where can people find your book? Where can people find you again?
So I am on Instagram. You'll find other poetry, not the poetry that's in the book, but other poems. The handle is at mylife.inpoetry. And I go under the name T Bella on Instagram. And you can find my book, The Road Taken by Tina Mirabella, on Amazon. It's on Amazon, all the Amazon platforms. And just to assure people it's not all gloom and doom, there's a lot of beauty in there and a lot of hope and resiliency and a lot of intentional poems which focus on our relationship, excuse me, our symbiotic relationship with nature and God. And it really is uplifting as you come into the end of the book. So I hope people seek it out on Amazon.
I hope so too. It's a great book. So thank you again for being here
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so much. Totally been my pleasure.